this is going to be a touchy. We have to be really careful because we're going to allude to the fact that just by listening to you two gentlemen, you too can have the perfect rehearsal.
But no, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
Ronco,
How's,
the
how's it
Ronco
go, fellas?
Bandomatic.
So,
Yeah, well,
is there a book somewhere? What are we going to
uh,
do?
the Book of Hard Knocks. The Book of
Yes,
Hard
sir.
Knocks. And well, we're going to come clean. Anthony and I talked about this. This is how to plan a perfect rehearsal. We've never encountered one.
No kidding.
But this is the plan. So, this is the plan. It's something that always screws up. So we're not setting ourselves up as the Ronco Bandomatic system.
No.
That if you do this, your band will be great. Yeah.
You mean there's not, when I get that 4-year piece of paper, I don't already know everything and know how to have that perfect rehearsal? Come on.
No, we just have student loans at that part.
There you go.
It's all we've
Winging
got.
a prayer.
And the
I think
panic
it
of
only
having
takes
to
1 or
work.
2 rehearsals before we go, oh man, what am I doing? So
Yeah, and it's funny with and I was exactly the same way. Came out of college, and I thought, man, I know how to run a rehearsal. I couldn't even get them to shut up.
Yeah.
So the rehearsal goes, we got nothing done because I can't even get them to be quiet, and get their butts in the chair. They do jump up and go sharpen a pencil or go use the bathroom or whatever. And it's like, so don't feel bad out there if you're a younger teacher. That first rehearsal is a baptism by fire.
can we,
Unless you have a strong mentor who's the high school director standing as the shadow in the door, looking at those kids. If you're by yourself, that first rehearsal's it's traumatic.
so all kinds of factors, right? How old are the kids you're trying to teach? I
Mhm.
mean, as you walk into a rehearsal, what did they just get out of? What was your, Mike? You said your first gig, you had all the beginners in one class in the afternoon, right after PE.
Oh yeah, they smelled.
Oh,
They were excited. They were ready to go home. And I
I
had
bet
tuba through flute
every
all
day was
together.
a perfect
50 of them
rehearsal.
a day. 50 a day. 50-person class.
So talk to us. How do we get to that perfect? How do we strive towards the goal? How do we
I
get
think
to a
part of it's
perfect
just
rehearsal?
making sure you have a timing plan. And it doesn't have to be an exact by the minute, but a good friend of mine, Kyle McDonald over at Wiley, he throws the plan on the smart board or the monitor on the wall behind him. And it kind of, and I never asked him this, but I'm sure he does it so he can see it, the kids can see it, and it kind of keeps him honest. Sometimes he'll be going along and he'll look at the clock and, okay, let's go to the other piece. Otherwise he'll bogged down. But I think, in a normal rehearsal, in the old days, we'd have like a normal 55 minutes and then 5 minutes of class changing. And now in middle schools, oh my gosh, sometimes it's 42 minutes. So you have to kind of adjust these times. But I would say, the first 10 minutes of warm up and tuning, you know, and that's not mindless playing through things. It's very engaged in how do we do this? What are we doing? What's our end goal? And are we going to play in tune? And if you can only do it for 5 minutes, do it for 5 minutes, but don't skip it. Don't say kids warm up on your own for 2 minutes because
So
kids won't.
one of the encompassing thoughts I've had since we've been doing this series with Anthony is don't undervalue that time. It's not throwaway time.
Right.
It might be the most important time for creating a good band sound that you spend.
And it will set the tone for the rehearsal.
Yes.
Tone.
Tone.
Oh.
to the tuners. So warm up and tuning. Do you spend as much time as you need? I mean, I know you just set a clock, but realistically, if I'm setting a value on how much time I need to do that, is that first 10 minutes pretty enough time to get it done?
I would say first 10 if you can, if you got a long enough period,
Well, me personally, it was a scale. At the beginning, we spent a lot of time getting ensemble sounds, and we did all 12 major scales, and we did chorales, and we would read there's books, and like I say, the old Claude Smith. I don't know why it's popped up, but that old Claude Smith symphonic warm-ups and techniques.
It's a good book.
I realized that I used that for probably 25 years of my career.
Yeah.
Just because they had counting on the covers, and I would just go, let's do line 23, and every kid counted, and we had a chorale we played every day. It was memorized. We played it every year. Be Thou My Vision. It's kind of funny. It's no secret. But we read every other chorale. So we used that book to sight read every day. We would do etudes, and the etudes would be unison, and it was fun for tuba players to have to play the same thing that those flutes were playing. And so, I would go through that heavy at the beginning of the semester. And then, of course, split, go practice whoever's going to be working on all state. But as the semester, and then we might play a piece at the end. We may not even play a piece of music the first week.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, there's plenty of music to play, but we haven't realized once we start that, we start passing out some published music. But as you get, for some people still, when you go, like, I will say, how's it going? How's rehearsal? And it's 3 weeks before UIL, and they're still spending 40% of their rehearsal on their warm-up, and I'm going, whoa.
Yeah, it is a sliding scale.
It is a sliding scale. And so if you can establish those fundamentals early in that season, whether it's concert, even marching band, you will be able to then, 3 weeks before UIL, you're going in, establish a pitch center, tune, play a chorale, and start. I mean, then it turns into about a 6-minute warm-up, and you're right into Hindemith or right into
whatever your selection is.
Whatever.
Yeah. And I think in between those two, I find that it goes from ensemble, blend, balance, tuning, and then it goes into a little bit of that because they've established it, into sheer technique. Well, let's play these scales. Let's play these scale in thirds. Let's slur two, tongue two. Let's do articulation exercises. But you're right. Once we get down to the nitty gritty before a concert, we've got to work on the concert music.
Yeah.
we've got to do that. And you don't want to ever be that purist band director that says, well, I just work on, I have a 50-minute period. I do 40 minutes on chorales and tuning because that's what we do. And that's one really good way to get kids to quit your program. If you're wanting to thin the herd a little bit, because only the real smart music geeks will stay and go, yeah, we like this. Let's talk about just intonation with the.
And as the semester goes, they all do scheduling for the next year classes. So if you'll do all those fundamentals early,
exactly right. Quiet part out loud.
And if by the time you get there, they've forgotten. But I will say this, and I don't know, this just worked for me. We would do the band's scales for a while, but in the end, they played all 12 major scales by memory, and it was just, and it was repetition beast for just getting all this dexterity in your fingerings, whatever that was, and getting used to what that sounds like. Problem notes, you could just stop on them and say, why is this such a booger bear of a scale? And then they would go, oh, we got to pull every slide we've got out.
Yeah.
So it was fun, but it as we warmed up, we would do some long tones. We would play through 12 major scales, and sometimes it would be a challenge. I never did it the same way twice. I'll
say that again. That's
never
a great
did it the same way twice. Sometimes I would say, all right, let's just see how fast we can get through them. And now they're sitting up, or let's go back and stop on that B natural concert. And why is that out of tune? It was never the same, because if it was the same, you just suddenly saw all your low brass players.
Yeah. It turns into a bad church service.
Yeah.
And a bad church service is the same thing every Sunday. So you just sit and first, second, third,
You're
verse.
right with the Lord, because if I start talking church, I'm afraid that there's going to be lightning coming through here, brother. But no, that's good. I'm happy for you.
Hopefully the gods of band will protect me.
Yeah,
hypocrisy.
Well, he did have trumpets, back, Harold. All right, go ahead.
Yeah,
but no, I just think that sliding scale is critical. But I never didn't play. Well, we'll go back on a chorale. We may end up just playing the first phrase, but
Mhm.
in their mind, they got that little piece, like girls, we finally got our eyes done. I have daughters. We had our makeup done, I mean, so there were certain things that if it was like a feel good to get you ready for that rehearsal, but in the beginning, it was the fundamental,
Yeah.
the fundamental.
Or something as bizarre as take 8 measures of the King March and play it as a chorale.
Absolutely. Good
So,
point.
we're gonna play this as a chorale to go first strain, first 8 measures, and just play it as a beautiful chorale.
And
And
bopping came into
Yeah.
my world later, and I used it sometimes, but I didn't. But it was definitely something you play a chorale bopped.
Yeah.
I mean, just the thought of that is it completely. I'm a fan of tear it down. Rehearsal, I'm gonna tear it down to the least
To the
common
skeleton.
denominator,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna build it back up. And by the time we get through, they're gonna go, "Man, we sounded good.
Yeah.
Let's go home." And that I always felt like it was our job.
Yeah.
You're gonna play something that they sound good and go home and then invite their friends to get in band. in
That's right.
spring.
That's right.
So my throwaway this is a throwaway comment from me as we move toward the next section of rehearsal. I've got to tell you that we did Baccarat number 16 from 7th grade all the way through high school. Still one of my favorite things to hear,
Yes.
one of my favorite things to play. Done well. We did it in the end zone at marching contest as a warm up, actually out
Yep.
on the field. It still makes my spine tingle. We'll use my spine in this example.
Mhm.
Tingle to hear that done well and in tune, and just good in tune music is a physical thing for me, and I think the chorales did that.
Yep.
So
Yes.
And speaking
were
of your
talking about-
spine, band directors need to have some spine
oh, quit.
and stick to their plan. It
Yeah.
will eventually work. The minute they get shaken,
Trust
they
the
go, "Oh
process."
no, my kids act like they don't want to do it." The kids aren't running your rehearsal. You're in control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make
All right,
wise
so
decisions.
We've warmed up. We've done some tuning. What's the next part of our perfect rehearsal plan?
Oh man, I think the most fun part, problem solving. To me, that was the intellectually and musically, that was the most fun part. Just trying to figure out how are we going to correct the mistakes we heard yesterday? How are we going to correct the mistakes we're hearing today? And so I want to kind of pick Anthony's brain and how do you go through that process for you? When you rehearse a band, if it's your band or a clinician band.
Well, usually, I will give them a chance to see where they are today versus yesterday because they've had a night to get all of the priorities of survival and living. Yes, they've had a chance to eat, sleep, and practice.
That's right. Those
So
are the 3 main food groups.
If they could do those 3 things before that next rehearsal, let's start at letter B and see where we are, and then you'll find out who ate and slept and who practiced. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I that's a good point because I had at that point probably had an opportunity to listen to a recording and find out who is the culprit. And then I just kind of go right for the heart.
Yeah.
And I would,
Or maybe you let them do true confessions. Play that part and said, what section feels like they're kind of holding us back here?
yeah,
And if you got a good culture in your band, they'll actually, they'll point, but they'll actually raise their hands.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we're having trouble back here or up here, so it's something to think of.
And some people think it's bad. Just kind of a little off subject, and I know that'll surprise you, but you can kind of have a good time pitting sections against each other.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
it's not meant in a
It's not a
bad
dodgeball way.
no, it's all in fun.
Yeah.
But usually they all know what that is, and so that's where we dig in. And sometimes at the beginning of those rehearsals, it's funny, we're still at the beginning of that after the warm up.
Yeah.
I go right into some technique, man. It's just brutal. If the woodwinds have it,
Mhm.
and we'll just play through it maybe at a tempo, and then everybody kind of goes, and then we go back and slow it down, and we woodshed it out. But I woodshed it I always teach to the top of the section,
Yeah.
and I will woodshed it out for those guys to get it, and then we'll speed it back up. And then everybody in the room knows, okay, there's still some people that need to work on it, but it's kind of a show and tell.
Mhm.
So that's kind of where I'm at that point in the rehearsal, and I'll pick it all up. And then if anybody, and then you move from the woodwind technique to over to the brass or the trombone tuning.
Seeing if they're breathing.
Seventh position is where again? You know, I got a trigger, Mr. Gibson. Well, okay, I don't care where you play it. Let's play the tune.
Yeah, and I really like the idea of individuals playing, but I would throw this out there. Always, for me, it always worked. Always start with the best player. Don't start with the kid
Right.
that you know can't play it, because at least if you have, let's say, 6 trumpets who have the same part, then the first chair plays it, then second chair plays it, third chair plays it. By the time it gets to the kid that had the most problem, at least he's heard it done right 5 times.
Right.
You know, and there's a little bit of, and you're right, I always loved doing this. If it was like the woodwinds had a really technical part, pit them against each other, have the brass and percussion vote.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and say, "Okay, flutes play that, clarinets, saxophones, double reeds."
You're teaching
Have-
physics class.
Yeah,
Democracy.
that's right, yeah, where it's physics or civics. Okay, who thought the double reeds were the best? Who thought the flutes were the best?
No.
And it was all done. And then we'd reverse and do that to the brass players on the break strain in the march, and have the woodwinds vote on it. And it's and I would do it by the old gladiator days, thumbs up.
I was thinking the exact. Everybody go, what do you think? And they'd go,
They'd all go like this. No,
it's so funny.
and you have to have a decent band culture, but the kids actually like it.
Yeah.
They like, and, we as
Well,
humans, we like showing off, and we don't want kids to hide. But I will say this: there's times I've allowed a student to hide because I know that they can't play that part.
Right.
So I will not make them play it by themselves. But I might at the end of class go, "Is there a day you can come in after school and I can work on this with you?" Said, "I don't want to put you on the hot seat." And so I'm not going to do that, because sometimes it's a mental block, so it's one of those things where I've gone and I've asked, like in marching band,
Mhm.
do you have the kids play off their music by memory and check it off? Do you hear them play individually? It's amazing how many don't.
Right.
But they say, "Oh, no, we just play the music." Said, "Well, you don't have to put a kid on the spot, but just have them play off the music, or 6 measures."
So put 'em on
of
the
it.
spot.
Yeah.
No, back to that individual though, is that sometimes you get that principal player in your concert band to play that part for those freshmen who are playing a third part, let's say, or
Yeah.
it's not all freshmen do though, but mind you, but you get that peer to, and then you say, "Hey, can you guys work that out?" And that was all I said, but that read very clearly that a very successful, accurate senior is going to help that younger kid on their own.
Yeah.
And they knew that the next day I might ask them to play it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's an accountability to that,
There
but that's the fun part about building leadership too, is sometimes you have to encourage it, but most of the time it's just, "Hey, can we help these guys?" And that's a subtle way of saying, "You old guys better pull those young guys out because those young guys are going to be part of us." when
And
we're
they're your
standing up.
responsibility.
They're your
If you're
responsibility.
if you're the first chair clarinet, you are responsible.
And that all
whole
starts in
section.
marching band.
Yeah.
You know, once that culture is established in marching band
Yeah.
with section leaders and, freshmen are wandering around and you just put them under your arm, that will build and carry right into your concert band.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt. The
Did
thing
you
I
guys
always
ever-
try to go
Did you
ahead.
guys ever have guys like me in your band that once we'd worked that, and I've told Mike this before, Anthony, this is true confession, that there was a certain point where I really didn't even need the music anymore. We'd played it so many times that I didn't really even, I knew how to count it. I knew where it was, but you get lazy if you're not paying attention all the time and you start playing or it morphs naturally because you're not looking at it, counting it, doing it right. Did you have those guys in your section that this is a great time to go, I know you think you're playing it right. Go ahead and count that out for me. Show me.
Yes.
I'm not sure that I was that nice. I would just have them play and look around and go, "Is that our expectation?" And their kids, their peers are brutal. Yeah, I could be brutal, but the kids knew what's going on, and it was kind of amazing because, it would take care of itself eventually.
Right.
But when you were saying I've played it so many times, that brings up a good point. You just go back and review. Now we've kind of morphed into playing this a little bit lazy on the dotted 8/16, the most commonly missed
Yep.
rhythm in the world, you know.
Tripletize it.
But just to go back and just reevaluate and just touch on it. But sometimes that takes 30 seconds of a rehearsal, and everybody gets a refresher. So, I mean, yes, I do, but it's a constant keeping us fresh.
But,
Good
you know,
point.
it's just like the Star Spangled Banner. Everybody plays it the way they think they play it right. They never actually look at and count it right until you
Right.
point it out.
And,
And I was
we would rehearse the Star Spangled Banner, play the first 3 notes. Good, next. You know, they can play the rest of it. If you can play the first 3
Yeah.
notes rhythmically
But-
correct, the rest
but
is
just
a piece of
making
cake.
sure your brain's not automatically going, yeah, I know this. So that was my
Yeah,
only point. But because I was the guy that, again, do it enough times, I got this,
yeah.
fart
Yeah.
off while the band director's teaching somebody else. So,
Yeah.
I was that guy.
If
Yeah.
I had you in band and you were like, I got this, then I would say, what did you hear him do? So it's not just in a serious note, it's not just about you. Then it's like who you're playing with, and then as your sections are playing with the big, that's where it's kind of cool, the depth that you can get into.
Yeah.
It's
Cool.
not just what you play; it's where you play in relationship to somebody else.
Awesome. Very cool. Hey, the next thing I would try to throw in there is don't stop unless there's a problem. How many times have you seen a director stop the band and they go, all right, go back to measure 14? If you don't have
Why?
anything to say, don't stop. I mean, and if you accidentally do it, because I've done that, it's like, yeah. Hey, let's do that again just for repetition because we need to see if we can do that correct twice. Yeah. But that's a buzzkill in a rehearsal for the director to stop and go back to letter A, go back to letter B.
Or even just a little anecdote. The other end is to stop, and I do this, still do, stop and just go, man, that was great. I mean, I just kind of go,
It's okay to give a compliment.
and they look, I go, man, that was like some of the most wonderful 16 counts that I've heard in a long
Today.
time.
Yeah.
Well, no, but you know, I think that we need to keep telling them that. I mean, they do respond to positive reinforcement.
They do. They do.
But yeah.
And the last thing to throw in there for that is, and this is hard to say because we're all sitting here on a podcast, don't be too talkative.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we all know what we're talking about. And I've been accused
I
of
feel
that.
attacked.
Believe it or not, I've been accused of that in clinics.
Well, and I'm sure we've all done this, but I kind of strategically would plan it. We would get into a routine, and I would slowly morph where go to the next thing. And then,
Yeah.
you know, and they kind of started going, okay, we're supposed to know this without. Then I would just walk up, not say a word.
Yeah.
And don't speak the whole time.
Yeah, that really works. I mean, you just look at the horns, you can just stop and go, you know, make kind of like a questioning face at him. And it's start, and all the horns like, yeah, I guess it was out of tune. Or we didn't come in together. They figure it out. You don't have to go in the attack and the articulation of this particular phrase. We need to, you just kind of look at him and go, really? Okay, everybody, let's play that again. Horns will get it this time.
And I think some people, and I think I learned it from my mother, may she rest in peace, but it was at church. And just for her to look at us, we would go, oh, it's not going to be good. So I learned that from her, and I don't have to stop and say, that didn't sound good, because you just kind of look over and everybody's like, nothing has to be said. No more, and it's fixed the next day.
Or even on a different level in rehearsals, when you know your staff really well, isn't it amazing how you can just kind of, you'll play a portion and you'll just look at that staff member in the back and just kind of look, and they'll look at you and they'll go, saxophones come with me. Not a word was said. And they're like, saxes come with me. They'll take them to an ensemble and
Right.
work it out. If you're lucky enough to have a staff,
Yeah.
we got a lot of one man, one woman gigs out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, some of those places that are Lone Ranger, and man, they do some amazing.
Oh,
work.
they do. They do.
They do some amazing work, and they sometimes I'm like, have you ever thought about moving into a larger school? Man, I just love these kids. I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
You're doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
man. That's pretty neat.
It's really cool.
It is cool.
And intellectually, that problem solving and what we just talked about, that's the fun part brain wise. Just emotionally, I think the next section of our rehearsal is the best. Kind of reviewing and making solid the things the kids already know. It's kind of like, I don't know you guys if you like to practice this way, but I'll catch myself anytime I practice. I just like to play the things I can play. And I'll do it over and over and over. And then I'll take about 5 minutes to play something I'm supposed to be working on. I'm getting ready for the Rose Parade. And so I've got 6 pages of music to memorize. And 2 of the charts are the same as we played at Macy's. So guess what I always practice on? The ones I already have memorized. And kids are the same way, but there's something in a good way satisfying about that.
Yeah.
You know, you can play what you can play well, and it's and that's okay to do with your kids. Have them solidify what they're doing well, and do it at the end of rehearsal. So they leave going to second period or whatever, going, man, we had a good rehearsal. So I really feel good about this rehearsal. And so I've seen directors when I've gone to mentor and watch them rehearse. The kids will just have a crash and burn towards the end because they're trying to teach a new concept, and then they go, and then the bell rings. It's like, and all the kids are like, God, we suck.
Yeah.
We can't do anything.
And I've seen it in the rehearsal, and I don't watch the clock that well. But as the rehearsal comes to an end, they'll say, F concert, and everybody play whatever that
Yeah.
is. It's kind of they leave on a great note,
Yeah.
pun intended. And I go, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Just instead of ripping somebody and the bell ring, everybody get out.
Get out of here.
Then man, they all go back and have this nice sound. So
That was really cool.
yeah, it's a mental thing.
Yeah. And just, get them to run through things when we get closer to contest. Every Friday, I would do all of our contest tunes in order with the percussion switching. So it was just like it was a run through,
Yeah.
and I would record it so I could kind of listen to it over the weekend and kind of figure out a battle plan for the next deal. But sometimes you got to, I say sometimes, I think it's important that you give the kids a chance to experience all 3 tunes in order. And plus it trains me to give the percussion enough time. Otherwise, I'll try to start and they're slowly. They're still trying to tune timpani and they're still trying to move things around backstage. So a lot of people
Mike,
kind of think it's
we've talked
wasting
about this
time.
We've talked about this before, Mike, that it's kind of important to do that because we will work our march one day, and then we'll work our middle piece one day, and then and you don't know that they can actually make it through all 3 pieces until you try to make
That
it
is
through all 3
exactly right.
pieces.
It's a physical, mental endurance issue.
And it's good to know that early in the process, even if it's
Yeah.
not all right. Can
And
they
I
play
think
that
Anthony
much
might
that long?
attest to this. There's sometimes you'll hear a band at contest play, and then they get to a certain spot in the 3rd piece, and then the wheels kind of fall off. And I always call that's where the bell rings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where the bell rings at measure 68 in the 3rd tune, because that's where the bell always rang, and they never got to the end of working hard on the end. So again, with the planning, someday start at the end of the piece
Yeah.
and then build it like Legos going backwards.
But
I 16 measures.
Gone to a pre-UAL one time. It wasn't at UAL, but
Yeah.
thank goodness there's enough pre-UAL opportunities to get your music down. But I thought, okay, we're going to go through all 3 of our contest pieces. Somebody goes, we've never played through all of them.
That's happened to me too.
And that's the first time that you
So
played through.
we're going to play straight through it.
Yeah.
So Miss Lady, we've never done that yet this year.
And it's good. And I got better at that. But
and it is hard if you're in a larger program because your program with changes might be longer than your period that you have assigned. So you've got to really, and that is hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I can hear people out there rolling their eyes right now. Going, you have first world problems.
And I have to apologize to the panels of judges, like many of them that would.
Oh, here comes a story. Did you write that in the score? This is here the bell rings. The judge's score.
They would think, oh God, Anthony's going to do all those movements,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And it'd be like movement 6. They go, is this still Monday?
Yeah.
But that's life. And I've sat through some contests where you just kind of have to get you another coat, make sure you're in for the long haul,
That's right.
because it is what it is. That's funny.
I love it.
Hey, when we were going back to playing something, you don't have to,
Okay.
but that you play something they're comfortable with. Again, I go back to, if you can't tell them on this gig, at any point in time, you could let's play the chorale, and they just go, whew. Some people go, well, why do you play chorale all the time? It is the most comfort. It's your best baby blanket. You feel good in it. Everybody sounds good. It's warm.
Yeah.
And then you can go into the mean, cruel world.
Well, to me, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm with you, man.
Go ahead.
I'm with you. Right.
Mike,
Sight
I'm gonna ask you
reading.
something.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
As we kind of do the sight reading thing here, I've heard you at a listening session say, listen, you don't have to abandon this piece. You don't have to tell the kids, sorry, you don't know how to do this. We got to do something we can do. But you can keep it in there and use it as a teaching tool, maybe in a
Or
sight
put it
reading
on the spring
section.
concert.
Absolutely.
Right. But again,
So they don't feel
still,
like they wasted time.
is that valuable sight reading time, or is sight reading simply let's go through the process exactly the way sight reading is supposed to be done, so you are familiar when we get in the room?
Now, this is just me, but I only practiced, and now it's pretty much the sight reading room pretty much is whatever you want to do. It's a different process now. So, but in the old days, I would practice the horse and pony show maybe 2 days prior. And I would tell the kids, this is what we've got to do. This is the routine. And they knew what they were supposed to do because the judges are in there. But now the judges leave because I judge sight reading, and I worked a total of like 4 minutes every 30 minutes because you listen, you're in there, you leave, the compliance official talks the band through everything that's going on. The director has their 7 minutes or whatever to rehearse them any way they want to do it. The only thing is they can't play an instrument, the director. The kids can do whatever you want them to do. And then when they get to the end of their timing, they send you a text in a little sequestered room, and it says now. And so we come back, and the band's all sitting there. We sit down. They introduce us for I don't know why, because the kids could care less who we are, but they do. It's a habit. And then the kids play. It's sometimes about 2.5 minutes, and then we type along and we do our stuff, and the next band's coming in, we finish up, we get up and we leave. That's a long way to answer your question. Apologize for that. But the situation is now, I think it's great because you can practice your sight reading exactly the way you're going to do it at contests because every director can do it the way they want to do it.
Okay.
If that
So
makes sense.
So I'm going to circle back to part of that question, though. Is this a good time to keep in, and it sort of echoes what I think Anthony was saying, something comfortable for them to play, or something that's not the same 3 pieces of music, that's still allowing you to use that time to teach a sight reading concept, or I don't know, just leave the rehearsal on a good note, or
I think I understand what you're saying. I like to start the sight reading fairly easy. If I'm at a 4A high school, I start usually on grade 1, level 1, and and I don't even explain it. I just say it's going to be about this fast. Get your horns up. Let's play. And then we kind of inch our way up. But when you get closer to contest, like 2 weeks out, I like to push them over the edge of the cliff and pass out like a level 6 where they're just like, buck puckered and trying to play. And then that way they can experience that panic of I can't play this. And then a week before contest, and you pull back if you're a 4A to the level 4. And then you go, okay, now we're going to play these now. And I always tell them that, so this is a level 6, guys. This is what the big boys play over in such and such. And it's going to be really, really hard. And they kind of like it. They like the challenge, but it kind of pushes them past their envelope. And then you can pull them back. But yeah, I've seen in the sight reading room as a compliance official. Now, I've been able to do that a couple of times, and it's amazing the different ways directors approach it, and some vastly different but yet effective ways.
That's right.
That works with their band. I've seen them go huddle, and every kid gathers around the first chair player, and the first chair player explains the music to their section, and the band director
talks
sits
through
there for 2 minutes.
accidentals, time
Yeah,
signatures.
points out everything to them, and then they sit down. I've seen it where they just play through it 8 times in a row, and not any discussion at all until about the 7th time.
Oh,
and they just wait for the kids to fix things on their own, and then they talk. And with the right band, that's pretty effective. With the wrong band, that's detrimental, man.
man.
All they're doing is practicing mistakes at that point. With a smart band, you don't have to stop if your band's trained. You don't have to stop necessarily to tell the trombones that's a D flat.
Right.
They'll miss it like 2 times, and you don't have to mention it because pretty soon the first chair player's gonna go, "All right, you bunch of idiots, it's gonna be 5th position, come on." And so it works out. So, you've got to know what your kids can fix on their own
Yeah.
versus
So
what you have to tell them.
again, I appreciate the amount of credit you're giving me. I'm actually just trying to figure out, as part of a perfect rehearsal plan, what are you doing with this last sight reading section? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, well, what I do in that situation is I usually sight read some spring concert music, or there's lots of really great books out there that have they do sight reading like little tiny 16 measure fragments, and each little fragment, I can't think of the composer, the author of that book, but I used it for years as like 2 levels, but then it goes like, is your little bitty band, it starts, this is a half note. Then to the next one, this is a dotted half note. The next one, this is a crescendo, and then the whole 16 measures does lots of crescendos and decrescendos. And it introduces one concept every single time until it starts to expand. And then it'll isolate sections. Like the bass clarinets will play like 2 measures by themselves, and then the rest of the band comes in, but you don't tell them that, you just play through it. So that's how I approach it. I never did hardly, I don't know, Anthony can chime in obviously, but I never gave big, long explanations on the sight reading.
Mm.
It was like, okay, we play it, then we talk about it a little bit maybe, then we might play it again,
Right.
and then we're done. But we don't go through the 7 minutes of
Right.
explanation. But
But I
how
guess
do you
even my
approach?
most basic question is, you do this every day?
Yeah, you've got to.
See, and I go back.
Even if it's only 4 measures, you gotta do some
I go back to that, and I use that Claude Smith symphonic one techniques and warm-ups and chorales or whatever, the Blue Book, that's what we called it.
Yeah.
And I think to this day, especially for advanced, good high school bands, it starts just like we want in a good key and everybody's gentle. And then by the time it's over, it's in tough keys, orchestra keys, and you're playing technique. Now, that is what I always used with high school bands, just to try to push them through it. We may not get to the very last one, but you had counting in the front, you had chorales, you had etudes. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, that is
It
cool.
was all in one book. And sometimes if we would go back and redo some of them in band keys, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If it was a technique. So yeah, it's a method, and you stick to it. I did it every day.
Yes. It's never a waste of time. Directors feel like they don't have time,
Oh,
but your band gets so much better
yes.
when you pass out a full piece of music, a composition, and they can all sight read better. Life is better.
Yeah.
They can play through the piece without you hammering through. In the old days, J.W. Pepper used to give you music on approval. I don't think they do that anymore. But you could, if you had an account with them, they would send it to you. So I would order, I don't know, like $3,000 worth of grade 4 and 3 music, and it'd come in big boxes, and we'd pass it out of my top band, the originals, and then we'd play through it, and then they'd pass it back in, and it went in 1 of 3 stacks. Going back to JW, maybes, definitely keep. And that's how we went through, and that was sight reading we just spent the whole period for a month almost, just reading through all that. Then I'd take all the stuff, ship it back to JW, and then they would charge me for what I kept. And I don't know if they do I don't think they do that anymore,
Well,
but
I
that
will
was
tell
my
you that
sight reading thing.
RBC has collections of sight reading by grade,
Mhm.
and you can buy that whole collection. It's got more than one piece in it, and it's
Yeah.
past sight reading pieces that they put together and sent out, so you can use that with your specified grade level, or if you're starting at 1 and working through 4 or 5, whatever you're doing. So that
Well,
stuff's still out there.
I did
Yeah.
want to jump in on the perfect rehearsal. On what
Yeah,
was it titled?
planning the perfect
Plan. Okay. The perfect rehearsal, just ask any kid, was not sight reading at the end of the rehearsal. My
Yeah, that's a good point. Don't sight read
whatever
again.
they could play that is exciting and they enjoy, let's play a big chunk of it. And
Yeah.
we're going to all end on that. And, and at that point, we may have beat it down to its nearly to death in rehearsal. But before we leave, we take it up to tempo. And man, their eyes are lit up and they're excited. And I just smile and they go, man, he is hauling. You better buckle up,
Yeah.
And at the end, off. And I go, have a great day. And they're all going, oh, yeah. And it's fun, somebody else. So that's a hard way to end. No, I think I want them to walk out of the band hall with a smile on their face,
Yeah.
a little lift in their step,
Yeah.
So I never would play, some god off. No, I didn't mean to use that word. Some really slow, dismal, deep piece, which I've done, and those are important. That's not how I'm gonna end.
We're not going to sight read that on the last 5 minutes.
And we're not gonna read. We're gonna play something fun. So they walk out,
Therapy.
they hit the halls, they got a smile on their face.
Yeah.
That's how I always like to look at it. And I don't care if that's a beginner band or senior.
That's right. And I think the biggest holdback in sight reading is directors don't want to deal with passing out music and taking it up or whatever. Make some folders.
Yeah.
We just had sight reading folders, and I just took a Sharpie and I numbered them just like a good jazz group would do.
Right.
And then you just have the kids, the section leaders know to pick up those folders and keep it under their chair, and they pass out the folders.
Mm.
And then you say, number 6, and then I'll go, let's play. And they pass it back into the section leader. They go and they put it on the shelf. But it's not this, I've got to pass out an arrangement every day, because that would be hard to do,
Okay. Well,
But they've got to sight read.
They got to sight read.
They've got to.
so just because there's people like me in the world, the things we're talking about in a perfect rehearsal, we weren't necessarily saying this is the order you should do it in, but allot this much time to make sure that you do it at some point in the rehearsal that works best for you and your group.
Yeah.
But I
I
do
would
say how they walk out of the room will make an impression on them. Every person from your band hall door to their next class.
Their next
Yeah.
class.
I'm telling you, if they walk out with a smile on their face, it's a lot better than going, man, that E minor just wore me out.
Kids are going, I really wanted to take robotics.
No,
Maybe
it's
robotics isn't
it's a
such a bad-
psychological game, though. That's for sure.
Well,
But if they'll
Anything else?
incorporate all those parts of the recipe and put them in at the time limits that they want to do, and I was really bad because of my personality of doing things in the same order. And then I had kids in the band that had that opposite, kind of extrovert kind of personality, that I'd have to change what I did that was uncomfortable for me, but I knew it fed the souls of the kids in band. Said, don't do it as I could do it my whole life, just going do this, check, 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 check. Look at my notes, I mean, everything's a check off list, and most kids don't operate that way.
Right.
So I've got to break outside my stupid little OCD self and go, instead of tuning and doing balance and blend at the beginning, let's sight read.
Yeah.
And then we'll work on some tuning at the very end of rehearsal, which doesn't make any sense to me. But there's kids that thrive on that. Said, oh my God, it was different today. Thank God. Marching band's the worst, isn't it? You do the same thing.
Yeah, and routine is important.
Routine's important.
But it in your routine, and I'm gonna just stick to the end of rehearsal.
Yeah.
And I've certainly left kids going to their second period class in tears, and that's unfortunate. However, the goal is to say, even if it wasn't, somehow you say, man, we didn't get much done today, but I appreciate your effort.
Yes.
A kid, notice I didn't say you did it good, because it may not have been good, but I
Yeah.
appreciate their effort us to get to this point. And some, people always be told they appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and so well
So do
put
kids.
that way. Sometimes it's okay to admit defeat.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of rehearsal, just go, hey guys, this just really wasn't a good rehearsal. I need to plan this a little bit better. And so it's no one's fault. It's one of those days. And sometimes that's better just to admit defeat in a rehearsal, and the kids go, we're going to come back and get after it tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's okay, instead of going, and I've seen directors blame the kids. If y'all just worked harder, we would have had a good rehearsal. Maybe so, but what does that accomplish? You know, it doesn't accomplish anything.
I
So
appreciate you guys because I heard this a lot of times. Well, I hope we come ready to work tomorrow because obviously we didn't today.
Sounds like somebody I know. Yeah.
Mike, I'm going to ask you this. uh, I want to make sure we get this particular set of notes, and I'll do it. But I'd like to have this available because we kind of scattershot at some things. I think this is a positive thing for people to look at and go, all right, even proportionally, this amount of time for this amount of time for this, because we kind of, it's just like anything else. You hear it one time and you're trying to remember things that you didn't fully grasp. You know what I mean? So all I'm
yeah.
saying is make sure Rick in the chair has this so we can get it up on our website where we put
Okay.
your great notes. I just think this is great stuff.
So everyone can
Because-
correct my grammar and spelling.
So many
That's what I usually
times,
get
though,
back from it. Hey, you don't know how to spell, do you, Mike? No, I really don't.
as a person, I think a lot of people, creatives, battle imposter syndrome a lot. And we don't want to ask questions because we don't want people to know that maybe we aren't qualified to be doing this after all. It takes us a long time before we go, I can do this. Or,
Yeah.
maybe it takes us a long time to figure out we shouldn't be doing this, but that's another podcast. I'm just saying that when you have some stuff written out and you can go, oh, good, I don't have to look.
Right.
I'm the worst. I don't want to look stupid, but I don't know how smart there's a smart way to do this, and somebody's figured it out. Both of you guys have said this at different times. We steal everything we learn. There's
Absolutely.
not a whole lot of original thought that goes into some of the stuff that we do. So I just appreciate you both being willing to say, listen, this is how we did it. Everybody knows you. You were both successful guys doing this. So I would encourage anybody, get a hold of that set of notes and use that to your advantage. Just to sit down and do the planning.
Yeah.
You both admitted there's not a perfect rehearsal. I don't
No.
know that
I've
we
never
will
run
ever,
into one.
but we can plan for it. We can strive for it. We can strive
That's
for the
right.
best we. So
Right.
anyway, I'll get back down out of the pulpit and shut up and let you guys wrap this up however
Oh.
you want to. But I want to let people know that we are going to make this available so you can go, okay, how long did they say for that? How long did they say for that? Even if it's proportionally.
Awesome. Yeah, my little wrap up would just be, you've got to make plans for what you're going to do, because if you don't plan, you're just planning to fail.
Right.
So
We've
there has
said
to be
that.
a plan, but the plan has to be flexible. It's okay. It's okay. There's going to be a fire drill. There might be something happen. The power might go out. So you just can't get caught up in the fact that my plan did not get executed. The goal is make the plan, try to stick to the plan. That's all I'm going to say on it.
I'm going to go back to mentors, and I am super thankful for Phil Anthony, who was always got confusing with Anthony Gibson and Phil Anthony, but Phil was a great mentor. Jim Sudduth musically, he was like the most impactful person that I probably had on just how to musically approach literature and band. And of course, my mother, who right is right and wrong is wrong, and kids, but mentors, have a mentor and don't think that you're putting them out. Call them and just say, hey, can you come by and just watch part of my rehearsal? Absolutely. I mean, there's guys that would do that. Just come by and just say, I do it all the time. Sometimes I'm going to somewhere and I call them drive-bys.
Yeah, I call them that too. Pulling through the town, I'm just going to text them, hey, I'm coming through. I'm going to stop for gas.
That's
Can I come to your rehearsal? Because I know when the rehearsal is.
And
I always said, no charge, just want to visit.
yeah, and the guy, yeah, just to see the face and just to be able to know, and you can ask them, but there's no question stupid in band. I'm the director.
Yeah.
There are other people in band.
But I'm going to jump on that real quick, Anthony. That I got a good friend, Rocky Harris. Love Rocky.
Good old
out in
Rocky.
Big Spring, working it. He'd been doing it a long time.
Sure.
And I walked in, and I was Rocky's road guy. I was the ed rep, and I walked in, and he told me, he said, "Yeah, I called J.R. McIntyre." And so for anybody that knows that name in Texas, he was kind of if you want to hear the truth, you should ask him. If you don't want to hear the truth, you shouldn't ask him.
Right.
But he
Absolutely.
invited him to come sit in rehearsal once a week for most of a semester, even after he'd been doing it for a long time. Talking about mentorship.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
Rockies was, I need to get to, I want to get better. You're not going to get better if you don't ask somebody who's better. So,
He's one of the masters.
Yeah, he is.
But
He's
kind
an
of-
icon.
kind of one of your mentor thoughts there, though, is Mike and I have had this conversation so many times that if you're too scared to have somebody come tell you what you could do better, you're not ever going to get it better. It's not going to happen. You hit the ceiling. So maybe I
fun.
didn't talk very much today because all of a sudden here it comes. Sorry.
It's good.
You're good. We'll get Rick to edit that out.
All right, gentlemen. I hope you have a great time out on the road, as I like to say, spreading the gospel of music education. Such a significant journey and worthwhile. Appreciate both of you and everything that you do to help that. So we'll talk again soon.
Thanks. Sir.
Sounds good, Derek. Thanks, man.